right, guys, we're gonna get started here. I know people are gonna continue to trickle in as always, but first, I always like to start off by thanking you guys for making a commitment to get these mental reps in every week. We all know we're busy. There's always things we have to do, but you guys command it your schedule. You command it time to invest in yourself, in your mindset, in your education, in your networking. So I want to congratulate you for staying consistent with that. That is the number one thing, is showing up, and you guys did it. Guys, always try and be completely locked in as best as you can. Let's not multitask. I do not want you guys to miss a piece of information that can help your business or help your mindset, professional, personal. So just try and be locked in, take some notes, and remember, there are no stupid questions. We are in here to get better, right? So if we get these incredible speakers in here, right, I don't want you to sit on a question because you're afraid to ask. I get these people in here so you guys can get any answer for any problem or any mental chain you have holding you or your business back, right? So if you hear something, write down a question, and when we have Q&A in the end, please take advantage of this time. Not many people get access to the people that we bring in here. So with that being said, let's get into it. So our next guest speaker, guys, I met a few years ago, and I followed his journey. Why? Because he shows up on social media, as I tell you guys to do. And I got to follow his journey, and through following him, I got to see what he was about, all these amazing accomplishments that he's had. And one of the amazing accomplishments that he had, he was actually hired to do the content and branding for an entrepreneur that we all follow, that is probably at this point close to one of, next to Tony Robbins, the most influential personal development entrepreneurial people on the planet, Ed Mylett, right? So through following Dustin, I saw this amazing accomplishment as he tells his story through his entrepreneurship at a very young age, by the way, and saw that, man, this young guy got hired to work and do Ed Mylett's content. Do you know how many companies and how many people are probably trying to beat down his door to get hired to do this? And this young guy got the opportunity to do that. So that was the first thing. And then, we invest to be, I tell you guys all the time about Arte. We're in another community called Apex, and he's consistently getting acknowledged in these communities too. And then I just follow all the big brands, all these amazing entrepreneurs and companies that he's working for. And it's my man, Dustin Winchell. And Dustin, I don't know, I don't want to butcher I always call you Dustin. I never said your last name. So if I pronounced it wrong, please forgive me. But what Dustin does, man, he helps 7+ figure business owners monetize their knowledge through their personal brand, right? And I wanted to share this one quote with you guys, because it's very important to know that even if you work for a big corporate company, your personal brand still matters 1 billion%, right? There's no doubt about it. And the reason why you guys should all consistently work on building your personal brand is so if somebody only knows you through your company brand and you switch companies, guess what happens? You're screwed, right? If you consistently build equity into your personal brand, letting people know who you are, everything about you, your like, know, and trust ability, and how you can help and serve them, it doesn't matter what company you go to, people will always support you. And by the way, if you start your own company, people will still support you because you were relentless and you were intentional with your own personal brand. And he shared this quote, and I wanted to share this for you as I give him the floor. If you treat your personal brand like a side hustle, you will get side hustle results. Right? So I just wanted to say that to you because it was a very powerful statement and quote for me. And I tell you guys all the time about the importance of your personal brand. And I heard a lot of you talk about rebranding, had a lot of questions about this. So because I follow Dustin and he's so good at branding, guess who came top of mind when I was like, who is one of the best I can bring in for the Harvest community to talk to them about branding strategy, branding content? And it was my man, Dustin, here. So Dustin, thank you so much for taking the time to join the Harvest, brother. I am honored and privileged to have you take time to be in here with us, my friend. How you doing this morning?
I'm doing great, guys. Thanks for the intro. That was awesome. This is actually my first time ever speaking to a community, so I'm super excited and grateful and just humbled to be here. So yeah, super excited to dive in. And, if it just helps one person, I did my job. So super
Love it.
excited to dive in today.
So two things I'm gonna do just in case. All participants, just in case you need to share a screen. But also, I would love for you to start because I want to start you guys off with how to win your dream client, right? And that is going to go in alignment with Dustin's story. Dustin, so if you don't mind, can you kind of share with everybody how you earn the opportunity to work with one of the biggest entrepreneurs on the planet?
Yeah, so it didn't all start with Ed, right? A lot of people hear that I work with Ed and they just think like, oh, he got, so lucky to work with, one of the top dogs like right out the gates. And that's not how it happened. It actually all started back in 2018 whenever my girl actually had a blog that she was trying to build out, and she planned this really awesome 2-week trip down the West Coast. And as we were planning it, I was like, there's no way we're going on this epic trip without documenting it, right? And so I bought a camera and a drone for the first time. And so we went on that trip. I started documenting it. And then one of my mentors, his name is Peter Voogd. I'm not sure if some of you guys have heard of him or not, but he ended up seeing my content and he was like, hey, man, I have this speech in Mexico like next week if you want to film it. And this was like my light bulb moment of like, holy shit, like this is a business opportunity. I could leverage this tool, this camera, to get around successful people that I had previously paid money to be around. Right. So it switched sides where I could be around them, hang out with them, record everything they say, and get paid to do it. Right. And so that was like a really big light bulb moment for me. And so it actually all started with Peter Voogd. And, I worked for him for free for 6 months before he ever paid me. And that was, really the foundation of how I ended up working with Ed, which is like I provided value for free, and then like he saw my value, and that's how it kind of went from there. And so what happened is back in 2020 is whenever I started working with Ed, and I'd actually just discovered him a few months prior, and me and my girlfriend were talking about it and just kind of manifesting like how awesome would it be to work with Ed, right? Like I just found him, he's awesome, he's the real deal, I love his message. And sure enough, at the time I had a team of like 5 maybe or something like that. And we ended up just creating content that was better than what he was putting out. We were already putting out content better for Peter and for a couple other clients that we were working with. And so what I did is I just created, content that was better. And then, I went to work, like getting around the gatekeepers, right? Like something big that people try to do is just DM like the top dog or whatever. And that's typically not how you get a hold of them. You need to like do due diligence and research. And so that's what I did is I just paid attention for those first few months. Like, who is he sharing to his stories? Like who maybe is commenting, right? Like seeing who might be connected with him on the back end of his brand, because there's a lot of gatekeepers, right? And so what I did was I ended up finding the marketing agency that was handling his brand. And so I ended up getting in touch with them. And, long story short, after a couple of months, I ended up being able to talk directly with Ed, and, now having his phone number, having, written on his jet, you know what I mean? Like it's been a crazy ride, but it all started from, me seeing him, thinking about it, wanting to work with him, doing some research and due diligence, finding areas of opportunity to provide free value. A lot of people are like, I don't know how to provide value. And it's, in my opinion, it's based on what your skill set is, right? Like what makes you different or unique to be able to provide that value. And so whenever you realize like what your unique ability is, you leverage that to provide the free value, and you find something that they need that you could offer.
You guys
So
hear that? Please do not miss. Like the last 5 minutes were very crucial about winning your dream client. Like if you guys didn't write notes and you don't execute based off like this week, you should be using these strategies if you use the harvest the right way to connect and conversate and try and add value and win that dream client. So Dustin, I always like to make sure that I wherever I can be like, hey guys, don't miss that. Don't miss that. Write that down because you already came out with some good fire, man. So thank you.
awesome. So what I'm going to do for here, just to kind of set the tone, that was like a little bit of like my story and stuff, and like how I worked with Ed. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to share our 4-phase roadmap for building a multi-million-dollar personal brand, like the right way. I don't have some complex presentation or anything like that. It's just going to be a little graphic that I walk you guys through. And then after that, like I'll open it up to Q&A and we can kind of go from there. Sound good?
Sounds good, dude. The easier the better.
Cool. So You guys can see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. So this is the 4-phase roadmap that I have developed over the past 4 years of building personal brands to do it the right way. And it all starts with the foundation. A lot of people think building a brand is just social media. And that's like, I used to have that belief too, until like I actually put in the work and found like, what are these top people doing that makes them unique and different? And it's all about starting from the foundation, which is what makes you unique and different. Right. And so how I actually look at this 4-phase roadmap is the same way that a lot of people would think about building a custom home, right? Before they, the construction team, the development team ever digs dirt, they need what? The survey, the blueprints, right? Like before they ever do anything. And so we believe the same to be true with your personal brand. Before you start putting yourself out there and positioning yourself and having people perceive you in a certain way, you want to really be strategic about what your message is, who's your audience, right? What are you offering to them? What's the strategy to speak into them and really understand their pain points, fears, and desires so that you can make sure that they relate exactly to what you're saying, right? And so getting super clear on the foundation of your brand before you just start blasting stuff out there is extremely important. So that's the foundation of your brand. I could talk about that one piece for 30 minutes, but just to go really high level here. So that's phase one, the blueprint, right? From there, once you have your blueprint, then you move into phase two, which is the development, right? Back to the custom home analogy. That's where people are actually going to start digging the dirt and building the home, right? And so that's the same thing with your personal brand on the back end. It's the back end of your personal brand, your CRM, your automations, workflows, email marketing, SMS, your products, right? Like if you're going to sell coaching or mentorship programs or online courses, you need to develop those before you really like start marketing your personal brand, right? Same with your content, getting your content filmed and developed and ready to post. That way you're not waking up every day like, what do I post, right? Like you already have it planned out based on the strategy of your foundation, right? And then in phase two is typically where we recommend to build out a studio, right? I used to be a freelance videographer and I used to think like, you need a videographer for any situation, right? Well, it was sort of a selfish perspective of like, yeah, you need a videographer, like, so hire me, right? Well, through my growth, I've realized that it's really not the best idea to get a videographer. And there's really only certain scenarios where you really need one. And so we actually recommend to build a studio, whether it's at your home or office. It could be as simple as my setup right here with just a webcam or Devin's there. You know what I mean? It doesn't need to be some super complex studio, but the idea is that you have a place where you can film content without having to depend on someone else or making an excuse like I need a videographer, right? Because it's not the reality. And so the only time you really need a videographer is whenever you're doing anything that we refer to as in the field, right? You're doing stuff that's mobile, you're going to events, maybe you're, a real estate investor and you're flipping a property and you're showing, the property, like that's whenever you would need a videographer. And even then you could still just do selfie style, right? You don't need a videographer, but if you were to get one, those are the scenarios you would want to get one, right? So that's phase two. It's the back end of your personal brand. From there, you move into phase three. This is what we refer to as the machine. This is where you start marketing, right? You have your foundation, you have your back end. And now, whenever you start posting on social media and someone hits you up, hey, I'd love to learn more. You've already set up everything on the back end to start converting them as leads to clients, right? Versus someone reaches out, hey man, love what you do. Like, what are your offers, right? And you're like, well, let me figure that out right here in the moment, right? A lot of people do that. And I've made the same mistake, right? And so phase three is where you're marketing, social media, podcast, ads, right? Like that's what's happening in phase three. Now, moving in from phase three to phase four, this is where you're really just like dominating, right? In phase three, you figured out like what works for your brand, what works for your audience, which offers convert, which ones don't. And now you're going full force, right? So phase four is the ascension. This is where you double down. So whatever's working, you're posting one post a day. Now you're posting 2, 3, 4, right? You're posting just on Facebook or Instagram. Now you're omnipresent on all platforms, right? Now you're, doing PR, right? You're getting into different publications. You're getting your social media verified. And the reason for that, a lot of people just see it as vanity, but it really does create a lot of credibility. And that's really the goal with your personal brand is you want to become credible. You want people to know you, like you, and trust you, because that's when they'll give you money. And so other things in phase four are, launching a book, right? Now you have an audience. Now you have your back end. Now you have your social medias developed. Now it makes sense to write a book. So many people write books, they write books, but then they launch them way too early. And they wonder why they only sold 5 copies to their mom, right? Like you got to build an audience first. And so, that's typically where you start seeing people speak on speak at events, speak on stage. and then maybe do a TV show or something like that. So super high level, that's what the roadmap looks like to building a successful multi-million-dollar personal brand.
Awesome. So, all right, I want to set the floor right here because we have all types of different business owners, salespeople, you name it, right? So I'm just thinking, let's just say somebody's sitting on here. Well, Devin, I'm not selling a coaching program, right? Let's just say I'm in banking, right? I want to let you know that this has everything to do with any type of sales business. If everybody that's on this call, they're in sales in general. You're going to have to sell something, right? Whether it's selling yourself, selling a product, selling, whatever it is, everybody's in sales on here in one way or another, right? So I want to kind of go through these to relate. Like if you are, let's just say let's just say I got, a few TD Bank people in here, right? Maybe they're like, well, I'm not trying to write a book, man. Like I'm trying to tell me how this can help me build my personal brand as a banking authority. So everybody reaches out to me so I can grow my business. And the first word that comes to mind, Dustin, right, is when we think about marketing, when people following us, is offers, right? So no matter what business you're in, right, offers are very important. Offers are kind of like, and Dustin, can you go into this? Because I'm trying to just share with people how when they start ramping up their content, how to strategically put messages out there, call to action or whatever else you think it is, to get people to reach out to them. So can you kind of go on, like if I was with banking, right? Like I'm just looking at that first phase on how we can relate this to all different types of businesses and not just selling a specific product.
Yeah, sure. That's a big misconception. Obviously, whenever I share this, it's from a like high level, mostly for the point of coaching. But this can apply to other industries as well and other offers, right? And so, with that example, just generally to provide value to anyone that's in here, regardless of what, industry that you're in, you want to make sure that you're not just like posting on your business page for one. Like I'd recommend to not post on your business page. And the reason why is you probably know the answer. You get very limited reach, right? Versus whenever you post on your personal Facebook profile. And so that's a really big one, just immediately to get in front of your people, because people are not going to see your business page. You really only want to use your business page to post content if you're running ads. So whenever someone sees your ad and they go to your Facebook page, they can see that you're actually posting content. It isn't just a dead page, right? So just really quick, I think that's a good little nugget to add in there. With that being said, we typically do the 80-20 rule with content. So 80% of your content should be, personal content, value-driven content, and like 10 to 20% of your content should have some kind of call to action, right? If you're just spamming every time promoting your services, how you're better than everyone else, like at the end of the day, you're just not going to end up reaching that many people. And the thing is you want 80% of your content to drive like all the reach and traffic to your page. That way, whenever someone sees your post, they're like, hey, I like this guy. Let me click on his page and check out his other posts. They see those 20% posts that you're promoting, and they were able to get to know you a little bit through that 80% of just value-driven, story-driven type of content versus just like seeing you promote, right? And so whatever you have to offer, whether you're a real estate agent, attorney, whatever, you want to make sure that the predominant amount of your content is your story, is, value driven. What makes you different, right? Like other lawyers out there are like this, right? This is why you don't want to work with other lawyers. This is why you want to work with someone like me. That's kind of like in the middle of like value and promo, right? And so there's some posts that aren't just going to be straight promo. Hey, if you need an attorney, DM me, right? Like that's just straight promo. But saying like, hey, this is the difference between other people, and then this is, the difference between how we do business. That's going to let people be able to make a decision and not feel like they're just being sold, right? So I think that applies to any industry, no matter what you're doing. And really just hit on the things that make you different. Like so many people don't, value that, and your core values are so important to let shine through your content, right? Like whenever someone goes to my page, they can quickly understand the type of mindset that I have, the type of person that I have, the type of, just personal development that I've done throughout my life. Like, I'm fairly young. I like to think that I'm not young because I now have friends that are like 21 that are making, millions of dollars a month. And I just like, I feel like an old cat at 27. But yeah, it's Yeah, that would be my answer there. Does that help?
I'm just I'm just looking at these phases, and dude, I sit on these calls and learn. It's a gift that keeps on giving. I bring in, I'm always like the student too. And I just, when I see things, I want to ask so you can explain to the audience. Guys, by the way, if you have any questions, put in the chat or raise your hand. But I'm just going to keep kind of digging into some of these things too. Um, okay, so is pretty much what you're talking about when you say communication frameworks, kind of what you were just hitting about with the 80/20.
That's a part of it. Really, the communication frameworks is a very in-depth deliverable that we provide to our clients, where it like goes super in-depth with like your tone of voice, like that. It's really meant for copywriters, anyone that's going to write for you, your content writers and such. That way you don't feel like you're always having to revise someone's stuff or someone can never talk like you. It's really just asking yourself the right questions to get it on paper in a written format so that someone else can take that and implement it to write on your behalf without you feeling like they can never talk like you or speak like you. The reality is that they can. You're just not getting it across the most effective way. And it's through like providing different phrases that you say, right? So if you have common phrases or like things that you say that are different, or if you curse versus if you don't curse, right? Like there's little nuances, slang that you use. Do you say man, dude, bro? You know what I mean? Like there's different nuances like that if they just added those little pieces, it would sound more like you, to where you're not thinking like, I can just never find someone to write like me.
Got it. Got it. No, good stuff. And then the other thing to know, guys, is this is why this foundation stuff is important, because a lot of business owners, when they eventually make the investment to pay for a marketing company or to have somebody do their Facebook ads, or even you do your Facebook ads, they go, man, I'm not getting a lot of opt-ins. Well, because they have this expectation that they could just put their logo on a flyer and do a Facebook ad and all these opt-ins are going to come. Your offer, your brand, like all these things matter. Like if you have a shit offer, you're going to get shit opt-ins. Is that correct, Dustin?
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. So just understand that when he talks about the foundation of everything, having this in, when you're not like getting a lot of direct messages on LinkedIn, on Facebook, like Devin, I've been putting stuff out on social media and stuff like that. This is an in-depth kind of look on, like, just know that like you're never going to be able to, I don't want you guys to never start because you feel like you have to do all this stuff. But what happens is, this is just an in-depth look on like how to consistently evolve and get a little bit better each time as you consistently evolve in putting out your content. Right. So, okay, now I noticed Dustin mentioned an offer. Dustin mentioned different things that relate people to kind of how I talk, sis, bro, stuff like that. I never thought about that. Right. And great stuff. So let's go to some questions. We got Jim, and then we'll go to Dan Deckelbaum.
Hey, Dustin, how you doing? Devin, I wanted to ask him the question that you and I basically talked about today, because it's about personal brand. I just recently changed companies, left a company that I was with for 2.5 years, went to a new company, and 30 days after I went to this new company, realized that they kind of deceived me, and I am switching companies again. And we were going back and forth with how much of an announcement versus non-announcement of doing that, whether it ruins credibility to say, hey, I know I just changed companies, but I'm doing it again, or basically what approach in your mind would be the, rip the Band-Aid off and just eat shit for a little bit and promote the new thing, or kind of go a little underground and not make it as big of a promotion?
Yeah, so I don't know the nuances of your situation, but in my opinion, what I would do is I would actually voice that. And the reason why is you can differentiate, right? It's like, hey, I know I promoted this company or whatever, not that you have to mention their name, but it's like, I didn't align with their core values. We didn't, these things that ultimately end up making people want to work with you if they also align with your core values, right? So you saying, hey, I switched companies after 30 days because I just wasn't in alignment, that's actually going to build more credibility and trust with your audience, versus you kind of like hiding it and no one really knowing. And then maybe like 3 months from now, you're like, hey, 2 months ago, I actually left the other company after 30 days and now I have this new thing.
Awesome. Thank you.
Dustin, you're talking a lot about core values too when it comes to your brand. I'm going to go to Dan Deckelbaum's question, but I would love for you to talk about the importance of that. So, Dan, you can unmute and ask your question.
Hey, what's going on, Dustin? So I'm in real estate. I'm a realtor, Philadelphia main line. It's pretty competitive. There's some really established players who've been doing it 30, 40 years. So I threw my question in the chat as well because it's kind of complicated, but building out quality personal content, any like tools or strategies, that help with social media to make your content look better than average is really my question. If you have any recommendations or you talk about that for a second.
Just to get clarity, you want to know tools or softwares to make your content look more professional?
Yeah, like one of the reasons I'm here is to start building my personal brand. Devin and I talked about it initially, and the videos that I'm making, I just like don't feel they're good enough. So I'm practicing doing some video content, but to you see guys like Ryan Pinata who's out there making really good videos. Obviously Grant Cardone. So making your stuff better without having a huge budget. Any strategies or tools that you have used or recommend?
Yeah, great question. So we internally use a tool called Descript, which is something I would recommend to anyone that's on a budget. I'll put it in the chat here. This is a really cool tool because you can basically throw your video in there, whether it's a 5-minute video, an hour-long video, and it transcribes your entire video. And so it's cool because if you said something or someone asked a question, you can quickly just search the transcription, and it's really user-friendly with like pulling clips out. So that would be what I would recommend from a like finding clips and, transcribing your content and being able to export certain parts of the video on a budget. As far as getting it edited, I believe we have editors. So like, we don't use like a tool outside of like Adobe, our team uses Adobe products, but I believe people use a tool or a software called CapCut. I think that allows you to get like the text on the screen, sort of like, Ryan Pineda, Alex Hermosi, those guys. We edit videos like that, and we don't use CapCut, but I've heard people mention that tool. So that's probably what I would recommend there.
Okay, that's really helpful. Thank you.
And, Dustin, when we talk about sharing your story, so Dan, why do you think that your videos are not good enough? Like, all right, and this is a great question by the way, for the floor, right? Because a lot of us don't put out content because we don't think in our own minds that it's not valuable enough or it's not quality enough for our audience. So Dustin, I would love for you to chime in on this, but Dan, why do you think it's not good enough? Just the quality?
I think the content of what I have to say is good enough. It's more so the delivery, like having the text on there, for example. Like I've never done that. I don't know how to do it. So getting the text on there, because most people you're scrolling through Instagram, you don't have your sound on half the time. So that would be one huge thing. If I'm, doing a 30 or 60-second clip where I'm speaking, having the text on there, it's going to kind of separate you from some of the older agents, the Robin Gordons, Lavinias in the main line, who are selling tens of millions, hundreds of millions of real estate, but they're 60 some years old and they're not really, using the new technology. So that's what I'm trying to differentiate myself. So, and then just editing, right? I've never done it before, right? And I'm doing deals, I'm doing transactions in the day-to-day business. So I'm not in a position from time to spend 10, 20 hours a week on content creation. So having some of these tools that can help save some time and someone who's done it and built a career of it, where hey, go to this app, go to this piece of software, rather than searching the internet, spending dozens of hours trying to figure it out.
So,
yeah. There's a lot to unpack there. So first of all, I would say if you're already saying you don't have time, you shouldn't be downloading any of these tools or softwares, and you should be hiring someone to do it. Not that you pay, an agency like us, but maybe you go on Fiverr or Upwork to find someone that'll do it for $25, $50 a video or something like that. There's the only thing with that is if they're finding the clips, you're probably not going to get the best quality clips. Like for us, we have individual people for different roles. So for us, we have one person that all they do is just watch long form videos all day and find all the best clips. That's all they do. That's all they're responsible for. And then we have someone else that actually goes through and adds the text and edits it and stuff like that. So if you go on Fiverr and you find an editor, sometimes they'll say either like you have to provide timestamps of the clips that you want, or, I'll find the clips for you. I would try to stay away from someone that says they'll do it all, because that typically means, they're a jack of all trades, master of none. And so I would recommend that, if you do have enough time to watch the videos, which it sounds like you don't, but you could at least get the clips, like the timestamps within the script. You could send them, hey, this clip, hey, that clip, and then they can go through and actually edit it themselves.
Dustin, real quick too, and tell me if I'm on. So Dan, remember this too. People do not have a long attention span, right? So you need to get what you're trying to get out under, and this is specific, under, I mean, it's probably lower than this, but as far as like a reel content to make this real easy for you, reels have to be under 1 minute and 30 seconds, right? So if you can deliver a message under 1 minute and 30 seconds, Dan, one, that's going to be effective, right? But two, you can literally put it as a reel. You can swipe the shade to make the shade look a little bit more quality. You can add captions right on Instagram. And remember, guys, in the harvest, like Dan, don't sit on this stuff. Ask, like, this is what the community's for, to ask questions like this, because you would have got this answer last week, right? So you can transcribe your video right on Instagram. Right now, it's not going to be the professional stuff that Dustin does. Let's be clear. But I'm saying if you're looking for quick content that has captions and edits, you can switch the shade. It looks, edit it, right? You can do that right through Instagram Reels and save it, right? And then there's also an app, like an AI app called Captions, where you can add emojis, right? You just upload it in there. They'll put like, I don't know if I just put up one about buying in Philly, right? And today, and it had like bold emoji. It transcribed my text into different colors. So write down that app, Dan, Captions. But yeah, Dustin, about like, just about content in general. Like I feel like a lot of people don't put stuff out because they don't think that it's like Albert Einstein content, right? Mm-hmm. But the Alex Ramosys of the world that we all follow, they say, dude, just continue to put things out there that help people. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. What does he say? And I share it in the harvest all the time. It's like when your free shit is better than people's paid shit, the stuff that people hire for, you will always win. And a lot of times it's just basic information that our audience does not know. They're not realtors, right? They're not in the game. So you can talk about basic stuff, and to them, it's like, wow, that was really good information. So Dustin, can you elaborate on like how you strategize with people when they have these limiting beliefs about their content?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this is actually one of my favorite like frameworks to think about. So whenever you think about your skill set and expertise, and you think about like Dan with you, right, being a realtor, you look at who would be like a 10 in the industry. It would be like a Ryan Serhant, right? Now, if you look at your skill set compared to his, you might, let's just say you're a 7, right? The cool part about you being a 7 is you can create content for anyone that's below you as a 7 in the knowledge, right? And so a lot of people think all their content has to be like this super high level type of content. And the reality is it's very, very much so the opposite, where you actually want to create so like, real estate videos for dummies. You know what I mean? You see those books like X for Dummies, like those are like big time sellers. And the reason why is because there's more dummies out there who don't know as much information as you than there are people at the 7, 8, 9, 10 of expertise level. Does that help?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's like you're comparing yourself to the people that you watch, right? And 90% exactly. of people don't have that level of knowledge or experience.
And that's a whole nother hack, like looking at your competition, going to their socials and seeing what content performed the best, and literally just recreate the same video in your own, way, like your own voice, right? Don't say exactly what they say word for word, but, look at their best content. And if it was like, how to, refinance a home, with no money down, like do that exact same framework for a video. Just in your own words, right? A lot of people try to, reinvent the wheel, trying to come up with their own unique topic ideas, when you could literally just look at the top 5 to 10 competitors in your industry and see what they're doing, right? They already put in all the work to come up with the hooks and all that, which is extremely important. A lot of people don't think about the hooks or consider it, but if your first 3 to 5 seconds of your video is not compelling to actually get people to watch the rest, they're just going to, go on to the next. They want to be entertained, they want to be educated. So if your first 3 to 5 seconds are not super powerful, the most powerful part of your video, you're going to get significantly less results.
I love it. Great stuff. Justin, you got your hand raised, but I see it. Are you able to talk? Perfect.
Yeah, absolutely. First off, Dustin, good shit, man. For everybody who's listening, just somebody who's paid marketing companies in the past. Dustin's given us thousands of dollars worth of income right now. So sit with it, actually make sure that you take action on it. So as I'm looking through your phases, Dustin, the one thing that keeps like coming back to me that I realize I don't do is the paid ad. So my question for you is, should I create specific content for the paid ad, or should I go back through the materials I've already used and see what was the highest performing just organically and then boost that?
Both.
So, okay. Boom.
Yeah.
All right. Simple enough.
Most of the, so this is a paradigm shift that I've had. Like, a lot of people think most scenarios are either or, when really it should always be both. And then you just make the decision on which one performs best, right? Like, test it, try it out. Don't just like only do new content just because you think that that's the option, right? It's like, let's do both. Let's test it out and let's see, what ends up performing the best, because you might create stuff for ads, like specifically for ads, but then it doesn't perform. And then you just decide not to do ads ever again because it didn't work. Whereas you could have just looked at your best performing content organically, use that as ads, it worked, and now you can maybe do both, right?
Perfect. Appreciate that.
Good stuff. Brian, Mr. McGroarty.
Yeah, thanks, dude. Honestly, awesome, amazing content here. I got so many notes. Can't wait to apply it. Real quick for you. So the one thing I heard the other day, so you talked about having a studio where you can do content. I kind of do it in the office space here. The one thing I heard about the algorithms is that, in order for Instagram and various sites, they want to see you like take photos, videos, whatever from different places. So obviously green screens are probably a great option for that, if you want to keep it in the studio to control sound and a variety of other things. Because a lot of times when I do content, I'll have like a teleprompter app that I'm using. So, doing that in the middle of a street, trying to read, sun glare, things of that nature probably won't, be the best side, but obviously I'm always looking for, tips and tricks on that. So like, how would you say maybe utilizing a studio or a green screen to shake things up though? What's your thoughts on that?
Really easy one is just to move the positioning of your camera, right? If it's on the left side of your desk, move it to the right side of your desk, right? If it's on the sides, like move it to the middle. That's like a really simple thing that you can do, just moving the positioning of the camera. So that's one thing. For me, I have different colored lights. So they're blue right now. I could change them to whatever color I want. So that's another way I can just kind of change up the background vibe a little bit without it taking me more than 3 seconds to change it, through Alexa, right? So that's two little things that you could do. I don't really recommend a green screen. And the reason why is it just typically you don't have the right lighting, because you have to have dialed in lighting on that green screen backdrop. Otherwise you're going to be, going in and out. It would be like if you had a virtual background, which it doesn't look like anyone does except for Justin, but sometimes he might come in and out of that background. And the same idea sort of applies with the green screen if you don't have the lighting super dialed in. You're muted, Devin.
Sorry, I was on mute like a loser. Brian actually mentioned a really good topic. What is the new algorithms right now? Like, I know that these are consistently changing and evolving. And I also know that, man, if you learn one little hack, it could be the difference of your video or your photo reaching thousands of people. Like, what are, some updated algorithms, Dustin, that you feel we can definitely learn from and start implementing? If there's any, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, they're ever evolving for sure. Like, we figure out one thing, we test it out a week later, it doesn't work, we're pivoting, right? So it's something that you have to always be aware of, but there's a foundational just understanding that always applies to all the algorithms, whether, they change or not, which is something I actually learned from one of my mentors. And it's the E3 method, which is basically you need to entertain, educate, and there's another one. I'm drawing a blank on it. But you need to educate them, entertain them, and then, do you know what it is, Devin? You know what I'm talking about.
Is that Stewman? Is that Stewman?
It's Stewman.
I know, dude. And now you put me on the spot.
It's the third E that I forget. But basically, you educate them, you entertain them, and
we'll drop it in the chat once. Yeah. I'll post it in the community once we figure out the third one.
Yeah. But that's super important. You need to make sure that all of your posts have some kind of education, right? Which is a lesson. Right. Just making sure that if you're telling a story about how your dog got hurt or whatever, right? Don't just make it a sad post, you also want to make it, entertaining, right? And educate them too. Like, what was the lesson that you learned through that? That's a really big piece. There you go, engage. So the engage part is, asking them a question, maybe having a CTA in there, right? Like, have you had an experience like this? Like, what do you guys think? What are your thoughts? Comment below if you can relate, right? That's how you would bring them into engage. But yeah, entertaining through having some humor in there, right? Like if it's a super serious post, still add something in there that makes someone chuckle a little bit, right? Because that's going to give them just enough to maybe consider commenting, right? And that's the ultimate goal, is you want to get people that stop scrolling and they actually like and engage on your post. And a big part of that is through the written content. So it's funny, sometimes I'll write out like just a little post, and then it triggers this idea of like, ooh, this might be a little funny. Someone might find this funny, so let me just add this in. Even if you have doubts that it's not really that funny, still do it, right? Like at the end of the day, you're gonna learn from just trial and error and figuring out what hits with your audience, what doesn't, what they laugh at, what they don't laugh at, right? So that's what I would recommend.
Awesome. Edutainment, educate and entertain.
Mm-hmm.
Dustin, I got another question. So with, I know Ed is obviously, we all know he's a super high performer, but he's always looking, I would assume, at like, all right, how do we continue to evolve my content? Could you share, like, with working with him, like what were some of the phases and like kind of, if there was any, you know what I mean? To where he was like, hey, maybe this like, I want to switch to this, or I want to switch to that. So we can all understand like how, we can evolve our content, and kind of like what the trends are for the influencers of the world. Like what shifts have they made because of they saw the market or anything like that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. I'll preface that by saying, Ed is very particular, right? Like we may suggest something, he's like, like sounds like a good idea, but like, I don't want that. And the reason why is for positioning reasons, right? Just because someone else is doing something doesn't mean that you should, right? You need to keep your own brand in mind, right? Like if Ryan Serhant is making TikTok videos dancing with his kids, like maybe that's not for you and your audience, right? That doesn't mean that you need to be doing that. But that's a really big, hack that we do, is we see what other people are doing, right? So as an example, with Ed's podcast, we used to do what everyone else used to do, which was just like find one straight clip, right? So like just one little power clip from the entire podcast, we would use that to promote the full episode so people would go watch it. Whereas, we saw this guy, if you guys have ever heard the Diary of a CEO, if you've ever seen their social media, like podcast promo videos, they are like movie trailers. And so we were like, man, this makes me want to watch the full video. Like the regular clips we've been doing aren't really that enticing. So let's try this out. And as soon as we did it, Ed was like, all right, we're never going back. You know what I mean? And so like now that's the standard, is we're making like movie trailer type of promo clips that drives that emotion out of people to get them to want to watch the full thing, versus it just being like 60 seconds of just providing value. You know what I mean? So like that was a switch that we made. And the hack was just seeing what other people were doing and what makes us like want to click. So if you ever notice like an ad makes you stop, or someone's post makes you stop, like really critique it and see like, what about this made me want to keep reading or watch this video or whatever, and implement that into your content as well.
Guys, that last statement is such a big hack to really amplify results. Think about what captures your attention, right? We just like go right by all these ideas, like, wow, that was cool, and then just forget about it. Like, wait, hold on, there's something there. You really were triggered by that. And it really made you want to click. That email I gave you guys, for those that are consistent with these calls, I shared that it clicked with me, Andy Frisella's emails, right? I was like, man, I really like the way he lays out his email. Most times it is obviously the subject line helps. But when you open up the email, a lot of times it's bang. It's a big like in the field or professional photo or him doing something photo right at the top. So bang, that grabs your attention. And then right under it, it's not some like newsletter that has 1,000 things on it. Sometimes it's just a basic script. That story tells what the photo is about. And I was like, man, that really grabbed my attention. It wasn't like a long, overwhelming email that I tuned out. And when we can start getting to the point faster, right? Simplifying a difficult message is when you really will start winning, right? That's why copywriting is so important. But like, bang. And then I was like, all right, let me just simplify this and maybe add like 5 to 6 sentences explaining that. And I started doing that, man. My open rates were insane. I was starting to get a lot of way more like replies to it. But again, what Dustin's saying, if that captured your attention, guys, don't just ignore it. Implement that yourself. Right? You don't got to like go through 35 YouTube videos on like, hey, if that grabbed your attention, then you should probably start doing it, to Dustin's point. Tim Jennings, I see you got your hand raised. By the way, somebody who just did a complete rebrand too and started another brand, walking and talking with Tim. So we got a lot of new brand stuff coming up with my man, Tim.
Hey, Dustin, how you doing? So my
Great,
question is, so yeah, thank you. So listen, I started this new brand as it was kind of an accident. It happened through this group, thanks to Devin, and it's been going really well. And my company is a completely different than what this is. So this walking and talking with Tim thing is interviews. My company is an IT company. We're a tech company. They don't really cross anywhere. So I tend to not mix them almost ever because I don't see the point. Every once in a while, it may come up in an interview while I'm walking around, but it's really rare. It hasn't seemed to have mattered so far, so I was going to leave that way. I would like your opinion on that. And one other thing, so with walking and talking with Tim, you know, there's a ton of videos out there. I've done 70 interviews now, and I just started spinning up YouTube, throwing them up on YouTube so people can see them there as well. I am omnipresent with that information on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. But my question is, do I need a website for that or not?
Do you need a website for what?
For the interviews, for the walking and talking with Tim.
Or is it like a podcast? Or are you just putting it on YouTube?
Go into detail, Tim, on like exactly what it is, so he knows. Like,
So,
Tim, and your other company too.
So Telecorp is Telecorp Technologies is a 25-year-old telecom and IT management company that I created pretty much out of thin air 25 years ago, and we're doing great. And we just rebranded with new logos and stuff like that, so it's going really well. Lots of new clients coming in. I do similar to what you're saying. We do have a company page that I do. Probably it's not 80-20, it's probably more like 70-30 with that, and that seems to work out pretty well. But when I'm posting I generally push the instead of the Telecorp logo, I push this logo because it's more personal. And what happened is in this group, when I first joined, Devin said, "What do you want to work on?" And I said, "My health, and I want to work on accountability." And he said, 30 walks in 30 days. And I said, "Who the hell's going to want to watch those videos?" So ironically, and we all laugh about that now because, you know, a lot of people are watching these videos now because it really turned into a bigger thing, and it was kind of an accident, really. And now I've interviewed probably over 70 people and some and everybody from all walks of life, you know, just business owners, CEOs, directors of nonprofits, you name it. If somebody's got a really cool vibe, I want to interview them. I want them on the show. I want to spotlight them, not only what they do, but them as a human being, and pull out that piece of them as a human being that says, look, check this out. I bet you didn't know this about Justin or about Devin or about whoever it may be that I have on. And I think that is what I'm after. And I'm just about to launch a 5K in the same name. And I think to myself, do I need a website for this?
So where are your interviews currently being hosted at? Like, where can people watch them?
So, well, right now, if you looked up Walking and Talking with Tim on Instagram, you'd find it immediately. It is part of my Facebook. It is part of my LinkedIn, and it is now on YouTube. And matter of fact, I just put the first 11 up to this week, and all 70 will be up probably. It's going to take a while. I'm going to probably do it over a period of time. I have a little plan for that. But by the time the race happens, they'll all be up. And so right now, I would say that if there's one place to go, it will end up being Instagram or YouTube. where you can really just go there and that's mainly what you see. You see that stuff. And I'm into fitness. I've done 75 hard twice. So see a lot of that stuff too. I talk a lot about positive energy. Justin Deal and I are probably on a very similar path that way. We do a lot of, we I shouldn't say we do, we are similar that way, and I think the reason that we're having some success is because, let's just be blunt, is because we're not full of shit. We're telling the truth. We're being who we actually are. We're telling stories about things we actually go through. We're interviewing or spotlighting people we actually care about and we want to see do well, and just putting out that positive vibe so that people, I think that's what people are attracted to, the truth.
So where can I watch do you have a YouTube channel or do you not have a YouTube channel?
I do. It's Walking and Talking with Tim.
And that's where you can watch them all?
There's only 11 of them are up right now, but the rest are going up over the next 10 weeks. But if you want to find me right now, Walking and Talking with Tim on Instagram is where you'd probably is where the best place to go.
Yeah, I'm there right now. I have a lot to say, but for sure, if you want people watching all of your clips, like I would use your YouTube as your website, right? Like you don't need to create a website. It's just like, hey, if you want to watch my episode, and this is from just like optimizing, the spend on it, right? So you don't have to create a website and pay for it to be done. You can just use your YouTube channel as the website. And it's just like, hey, if you want to learn more, like go to my YouTube channel, watch the episodes there. And then in the description, you could have whatever kind of call to action, whether it's like, hey, if you want to be on my show, apply through this link or, whatever. And so that can be your post by post call to action, but you could literally just leverage your YouTube as like your go-to website.
Roger that. Thank you.
It's super simple answer, but it's the most cost effective and efficient way to make it happen in the least amount of time.
Tim, any other critique while you're looking at it?
Yeah. Definitely. So would you consider this your personal brand page or is this just the show page?
I think this is my personal brand page. Yes.
Okay. Well, if that's the case, typically what I recommend to anyone, and this is just a general statement for anyone that's on here, is to make sure that all of your handles are your name. Like Walking and Talking with Tim, this is just one subcategory of who Tim Jennings is, right? Like you said, you have these different things going on. You don't want like one page where you're only talking about like one thing and people only know you for that. So one thing that I would recommend for everyone is like go to all the different social medias and try to get your name, right? Whether you need to use your middle initial or whatever, make sure that all of your different profiles have the exact same handle and they're not different, right? That way, whenever you say like, hey, look me up, I just typed in Walking and Talking with Tim, I couldn't find it. Someone had to send me the link. But if you said Tim Jennings, I could have figured that out and found you pretty quick, right? So that's a reason behind that. From there, just critiquing you, I would definitely update your profile picture to a picture of you. And not a picture of, the logo. That's why I asked if this is like your personal brand page or, this talk show or whatever page, because then it would change. If this is just supposed to be, for your interviews, then maybe you leave it like with the logo. But if that's not the case, and this is supposed to be your personal brand page, I would change your name to Tim Jennings and I would change your profile picture to a picture of you. And ideally it's like a high quality photo and it's not just some like, super ugly like angle from like where you have triple chins, you know what I mean? Like you want to make sure that you look decent and professional in your photo, and that applies to all of your different accounts, right? You want all your profile pictures to be the same. You want all of your bios to be the same. That way, if someone goes to, Walking and Talking with Tim, and they see your information, it's the same as whenever they go to your Facebook and they're like, okay, this is the same guy. I use Facebook more, so I'm going to follow him here. But if you had different profile pictures, different bios, they might be like, oh, I don't know if this is the same guy. So like, I'm just going to not follow him on Facebook, right? Whereas if you were consistent on every platform, they could easily find you and know, okay, this is him because his profile picture from Instagram is the same as it is on Facebook or LinkedIn or whatever.
Yeah, I do use that logo on Facebook, and I was actually about to throw it on LinkedIn because people do recognize that logo. And wherever I go, people go, aren't you the guy that does the videos? And I get that a lot. So I was kind of leaning into that for that reason.
Yeah, I like the idea of you having it as an IG highlight cover like this. That makes more sense to me because that can be like anytime you post it to your story or whatever, you can just put it on the highlight so that people can easily go there. And it's still a brandable thing, right? If they go to Tim Jennings on Instagram, they still see that walk-in and talking series through your IG highlights.
That's cool. That's really good.
Boom. And then one tip too, Tim, because you always want to try and find a way to leverage that to help your other businesses. Maybe do walking and talking with Tim sponsored by your other company. Just an idea, you know what I mean? So then people, what's this other, because you don't waste it. You obviously want the opportunity to make them all feed each other. So that's just one idea I had. Take it or leave it. But let's get to Justin. I know you have one more question, and then we'll sign off, guys. We're coming up to a hard stop. So Justin, what do you got, my friend?
Yeah, one more quick one for you, Dustin. So we've been focusing, a lot of the video content I put out right now is like 60 to 90 seconds. I found that the watch times are about 17 seconds on average. So I'm working with a company now. We're doing a bunch of micro content. So we'll have 30 videos that we put out. That'll be like 15 to 30 seconds just to get that watch rate up. And that way, from what I'm understanding with the algorithms, when people watch the full video, it pushes you out even more because, the completion rate. So would you say every day with the long form videos we put out that we should also be putting micro content? Should I do that every single day, but the two of them? Should I kind of stack days, every other? Like, what would your recommendation?
What platform are you talking about?
So I guess a lot of the micro content will be Facebook and Instagram. And then a lot of the other videos are on LinkedIn as well.
So you're putting the long form video on Facebook and LinkedIn? And then also the micro for that?
Correct, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So what I recommend to everyone is to put the long form on YouTube, right? Like put all your long form on YouTube, and all the other platforms should be short form pointing to YouTube, right? Like, hey, this is just a little clip of what you're going to get from the full, video. Go to YouTube to find it there, right? And the reason why is just like Google is a massive company, SEO, like it's going to help you, develop your, SEO and long-term positioning of your brand versus like posting your long form on Facebook and LinkedIn, which no one uses to search anything really at all, right? So you want to put it on YouTube because that's where people are searching how to become a better realtor, right? How to do these things, which is another whole hack is like when you are posting videos on YouTube, the more like how to something that you can put, the more views you're going to get. Because what do you do when you go to YouTube? How do you do this? How do you do that? Right? They're not looking up personal branding. They're like, how do you build a personal brand?
Absolutely. Thanks, brother.
How to save money on payroll, how to do this. You know what I mean? Like, there you go. All right, Dustin, thank you so much, brother. This was, man, you can't put a price on the value that you just given us. But remember, guys, knowledge is not enough. Write down what you're going to do to implement something that you learned today. Go back, watch the recording. But remember, these calls are for you to start taking action on something, and hopefully that's your personal brand. Follow Dustin, guys. Support him, follow him. You'll see a lot of stuff that he's doing in his journey. And man, share the call too so we can get as many eyes to Dustin and also kind of what we're doing in here to help and serve you guys as business professionals. And thank you so much, Dustin. This has been awesome, my brother. And guys, have a great day. Thanks for showing up, and I'll talk to you soon. See you guys.
All right, guys, take care.